I'm a man, and as a man, there are some things that I must be. I must be honest, kind, hardworking, diligent, have self-control. I must be a provider and a protector, and I must have integrity in all of my actions. All good and self-explanatory, except for the last one. What does integrity mean? Why is it important? Well, integrity is defined by Cambridge Dictionary as, quote, the trait of having strong moral principles that you refuse to change, unquote. Today, we'll be looking at integrity, and especially integrity in action, looking through the lens of Daniel, the model, Huckleberry Finn, the surprised, and Zacchaeus, the reformed. Daniel was such a man of integrity that he advised kings and scoundrels had to make bogus laws against him to entrap him. Daniel 6, verses 10 through 23. And when Daniel knew that the document had been signed, he went up to his upper chambers where he had windows open towards Jerusalem. And he got down on his knees and made petition before his God 3 times a day, as he had done before. And then these men came by agreement and saw Daniel making petition before his God. And they came and said to the king, King, O king, did you not sign an injunction that any man who makes petition or to a god besides you, O king, should be cast into the den of lions? And the king answered and said, The thing stands fast according to the laws of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be revoked. And then these men came by agreement and answered him, saying, Daniel, the exile of Judah, pays no attention to you, O king, and instead makes an injunction 3 times a day. And when the king heard this, he was much distressed, and he labored till the sun went down to free him. But then these men came by agreement and said to him, Now, O king, is it not an ordinance of the Medes and the Persians which cannot be revoked? So the king declared, and Daniel was brought and cast into the den of lions. And the king ordered, and a stone was brought and placed at the mouth of the den. And he signed it with the sign of his lords and him, that nothing may be changed concerning Daniel. And then the king went back to his palace and labored till the sun, labored and fasted, and no diversions were brought to him, and sleep fled from him. And then in the morning the king arose and went in much haste to the den of lions, and called out, Daniel, Daniel, servant of the living God, as the God whom you serve continually delivered you. And Daniel called up and answered and said, my king, my God has sent an angel and shut the lion's mouth, because I was found blameless before him, and also before you, O king. I have done no harm. And the king lowered a rope, and Daniel was brought out of the den, and no harm was found on him, because he had trusted in his God. Daniel had integrity, as he stuck to his strong moral principles and refused to change him, even in the face of death. Contrast him with Huckleberry Finn, and I would be surprised if Huck makes integrity jump to the front of your mind, as he describes himself in Mark Twain's The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. The widow Douglas, she took me for her son, and she allowed that she would civilize me. But it was rough living in the house all the time, considering how decent and dismal the widow was in all her ways. So when I couldn't stand it no longer, I lit out. I put on my old rags and my sugar hog's head again, and I was free and satisfied. But when faced with saving the life of a friend versus the eternal punishment of hell, Huck Finn acted with integrity and saved Jim, a runaway slave and a good man. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. I went and sat down by the wigwam to think, but I couldn't come to nothing. I thought till I wore my head sore, but I didn't see no way out the trouble. After all we'd done for them scoundrels, that they would have the heart to serve Jim a trick like that and sell him into slavery again for all of his life for $40 dirty dollars. $40 dirty dollars. If it got all around that Huck Finn helped a slave to get his freedom, I'd be ready to get down and lick his boots for shame. That's just the way it is when a person does a low-down thing and thinks because he can hide it, it ain't no disgrace. Well, that was my fix, exactly. The more I was thinking about it, the more my conscience went to grinding on me, and the more wicked and low-down and ornery I got to feeling. And at last, I about made up my mind to pray and see if I could try to quit being the boy I was and be better. So I got down on my knees. But the words wouldn't come. I was letting on giving up sin, but deep down, I was holding on to the biggest one of them all. I knew that I should do the right thing and go and right to that slave's owner and tell him where his slave was, but I couldn't do it. I was trying to pray a lie. You can't pray a lie. And I found that out. So I got again to thinking, and I started thinking over our trip down the river and how I'd see Jim before me the whole time, laughing and singing and talking. And for some reason, I couldn't seem to find no places to harden me against him, but only the other kind. And he was always so nice to me, and he would always do whatever he could do for me. And at last, I struck the time I saved him by telling the men we had a smallpox aboard. And he sure was grateful. And he said I was the best friend old Jim ever had in the whole wide world, and the only one he reckoned he's got now. I was a trembling, because I've got to decide forever betwixt two things, and I knew it. Should I do the right thing and go and right to that slave's owner and tell him what a slave was, or the more wicked and low down and ornery thing and help a slave to get his freedom? At last, I says to myself, all right then, I'm going to hell. It was awful thoughts and it was awful words, but they was said, and I let them stay said, and I didn't think no more about reforming. So I sat down and got to thinking over a plan on how to free Jim again from slavery. Huckleberry Finn had integrity as he stood up against societal norms and stood for what he knew was right, and saved Jim, a runaway slave and a good man. So I know I'm supposed to have integrity in all of my actions, but I'm bound to mess up. So what do I do? Well, like Zacchaeus in this story, I make it right. Luke 19, verses 1 through 10. And Jesus entered Jericho, and behold, he was passing through. And there was a man named Zacchaeus, and he was a chief tax collector, and he was rich. And he wanted to see who Jesus was. But on account of the crowd and his short stature, he could not. So he ran on ahead and climbed up a sycamore tree, for Jesus was to pass this way. And when Jesus came this way, he looked up and said, Zacchaeus, Zacchaeus, you come down, for I must stay at your house today. So Zacchaeus climbed down and received him joyfully. And when they saw this, they grumbled and said, look, he has gone into the house of a man who is a sinner. And Zacchaeus said to him, Lord, Lord, the half of my goods I'll give to the poor. And if I've defrauded anyone of anything, I'll restore to him fourfold. And Jesus answered him and said, behold, salvation has come to this house, for the Son of Man has come to seek and save the lost. Zacchaeus did not begin with integrity, but his story shows the power of the Lord to turn one from one despised to one with integrity. Looking at these stories, the stories of Daniel, Huckleberry Finn, and Zacchaeus, I see integrity in action. And the lesson that I've learned as I strive to be the man that God wants me to be is to have integrity in all of my actions, stick to my strong moral principles, even if the consequences are being thrown into the den of lions. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much. My time was 10 minutes and 11 seconds.